It goes without saying that the majority of movies are made with the intention of transporting the audience into a fictional world full of love, horror, and often wonder. But as it turns out, films can actually have a pretty great effect on the locations in which they are filmed, leading to everything from political revolutions to an increase in tourism. So which are the countries that haven't been the same since a movie was filmed there? And in what way were these countries changed forever as a result of the filming process? Well, whether you're a fanatic of the industry or just want to know more about the incredible effect that the filming process can have on the real world, you've come to the right place, as we're about to explore how some movies have changed the countries they were filmed in. So strap yourselves in and get ready for an informative ride, as things are about to get interesting. But before we get into it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss out on any of the new videos we post. The Lord of the Rings, New Zealand. Of all the countries across the globe that have been affected by a movie franchise, nothing is more well known than New Zealand, which is now and will forever be intrinsically linked to the Lord of the Rings universe and mythos. For those of you who never dove into the fictional world of J.R.R. Tolkien, the franchise is all about a hobbit's journey into the great unknown alongside his fellowship of friends who vow to bring a magical ring to the fires of Mordor, where it can be destroyed. But what does this have to do with the country of New Zealand? Well, as it turns out, the entire trilogy was filmed in the country, with the franchise giving rise to some of the most beautiful sights on the journey to Mordor. In fact, these sights were so beautiful that fans of the franchise wanted to make New Zealand their very next stop when it came down to vacation time, causing the country to fully adopt this status in an effort to take advantage of the new interest in New Zealand tourism. And according to Amazon, who is set to develop a continuation of the franchise in the form of a spin-off series, things won't be changing for New Zealand anytime soon. Sticking to the decisions made by the director of the original trilogy, the showrunners have decided to keep The Lord of the Rings strictly Kiwi by announcing that this new series will indeed be shot in the same plains as before. According to both J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay, who are serving as the showrunners of the series, no country can beat the majesty of New Zealand in this regard. On the topic of location, they said the following: "As we searched for the location in which we could bring life to the primordial beautify of the second age of Middle Earth, we knew we needed to find somewhere majestic, with pristine coasts, forests, and mountains. That's also home to a world-class sets, studios, and highly skilled and experienced craftspeople and other staff." As you can hear from the statement given, New Zealand has really leaned into the Lord of the Rings mythos by retaining the sets that were built all those years ago. And as you can imagine, this makes for some pretty incredible tourist destinations for fans of the franchise. A great example of this is the town of Rotorua, which you'll most certainly recognize from the very beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring. That being said, you'll know this homely town by another name, Hobbiton. This fictional village is the one that gave rise to the hobbits around which the entire franchise revolves, as well as the prequel that featured Bilbo Baggins, known simply as the Hobbit. And since it sits just 2 hours south of Auckland, Rotorua is a major reason for the pumping tourism industry that New Zealand is currently enjoying. Or at least it was until the onset of the coronavirus pandemic, which has unfortunately slowed things down quite a bit. When things are back to normal though, you'll be able to buy yourself a pint of beer at the Green Dragon Inn and explore the vast number of buildings that make up the Shire. But this isn't the only tourist attraction that New Zealand boasts from the franchise. Fans of Sauron and the forces of evil will also be able to visit the hilly slopes of Mordor and the Hidden Bay, which are more commonly known to inhabitants of the country as Tongariro National Park. This is where you'll be able to see the active stratovolcano called Mount Ngauruhoe, which fans of the franchise will recognize as Mount Doom. And then there's Queenstown, which was used to shoot all the scenes of the mystical lands of Lothlorien, making for some classic Instagram candy for those of you who love impressing friends online. Suffice to say, the tourism industry of New Zealand has never been the same since Peter Jackson decided to film The Lord of the Rings in its vast, beautiful wilderness. And as we mentioned earlier, it looks like things are only going to get better for the country, with the new series also selecting to call the country its home. Black Panther, Various, taking on the second position on our list, is one of the greatest Marvel movies of all time, featuring the late but unforgettable Chadwick Boseman in all his glory. We are, of course, talking about Black Panther, which is considered by many to be the best Afro-centered superhero movie of all time. So you won't be surprised to hear that there are many ways in which the film changed the world in general. Marvel fans have, for example, found themselves trekking through the Iguazu waterfalls in Argentina, which is where the classic first fight between T'Challa and Killmonger Killmonger took place for the Kingdom of Wakanda. And since these falls are located on the border between Argentina and Brazil, it goes without saying that both countries have been changed quite drastically as far as tourism goes. While visiting this iconic wonder is most certainly the main reason behind fans traveling all that way, both countries have a lot more to offer, which has most certainly improved their economies over the last few years. And since the falls can be reached from either side of the border, both countries have benefited equally from this solid filming choice. And while some scenes were actually shot in Busan, South Korea, it must be said that the work that Black Panther has done for Atlanta, Georgia is far more important. For those of you who don't know, Atlanta is a state in America that is renowned for its rich African American history and culture. It's also a state which has seen violence along racial lines over the last couple of years, showing precisely why Black Panther was needed in the world. Before this Marvel movie made its impact, Atlanta was considered a place where the rich got richer and the poor stayed exactly where they were. But then Black Panther showed us that someone could indeed make something out of himself, even when from the projects. And while Killmonger wasn't the greatest role model for African Americans considering his dabbling in crime, there's no doubt that he has a change of heart before passing away in those final scenes alongside T'Challa. It must also be said that Boseman himself took on the role of a role model. But what happened in Atlanta after the release of Black Panther was then repeated across the rest of the globe. Black people who to date haven't been given many positive role models in films across the decade found themselves faced with two incredible characters to choose from, each with their own merits. The world rejoiced at how far things had come, making Black Panther one of the most popular movies in the entirety of the Infinity Saga. And it's for that reason that the film makes it onto our second position. It didn't just change the countries that it was filmed in. It showed everyone across the globe that things have changed, creating a unifying presence that has yet to be seen with another release. And there's no doubt that the sequel to the film, which will unfortunately not be starring Chadwick Boseman, will do exactly the same when it finally comes out. Harry Potter, United Kingdom. Another franchise that absolutely swept the globe when it first launched in 2001 was Harry Potter, which was one of the first films to ever introduce the audience to the wonders of a world filled to the brim with witches and wizards. And since a lot of the filming took place across the United Kingdom, it goes without saying that London and a number of other British cities took front and center when it came to tourism. Not like English tourism was low or anything, but considering just how many Harry Potter fans there are in the world, the country was simply never the same again. London Zoo, for example, saw an influx of visitors after the first movie hit theaters. In its opening scene, you see Harry talking to his very first snake and magically causing the glass covering the enclosure to disappear completely. Fans of the franchise can also have their own experience at King's Cross Station, which features a symbol of Harry's first trip to Hogwarts. We are, of course, talking about platform 9 3/4, which has a half-disappearing trolley sticking out from the wall that fans can take a picture with. But by far the most exciting opportunity for Harry Potter fans is a visit to Gloucester Cathedral, which doubles as the incredible castle known to us as Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It's not often that someone is able to visit the actual castle that has become the childhood of so many friends and family. So you can imagine just how many people flock to this incredible site on a yearly basis. But it's not just the economy of the United Kingdom that has been improved by the filming of the franchise on English ground. Before the land was sculpted by a universe of magic, tourism in England was very much considered to be an old man's game. There were always incredible sites like Big Ben, but nothing for the younger generation. As such, the United Kingdom has seen a massive increase in its geeky population, and it has Harry Potter to thank for this. But what do you think of these changes? Be sure to let us know in the comment section down below.